Most people spend their entire lives trying to stay away from debt. From the time they are young, they are taught one simple rule: do not borrow money. Do not owe anyone. Pay off every loan as fast as possible. And on the surface, that advice sounds responsible. It sounds safe. It sounds like the kind of financial wisdom that protects people from making dangerous mistakes. But then something strange appears. If debt is truly so dangerous, why do some of the richest people in the world borrow money constantly? Why do successful real estate investors use mortgages instead of paying cash? Why do business owners use credit lines to grow their companies? Why do banks compete so aggressively to lend money to people who already have money? That is where the truth becomes uncomfortable. Because debt itself is not what makes people poor. Debt is only a tool. The same loan that traps one person can make another person richer. The same interest rate that destroys one family can help build another person's wealth. The difference is not the bank. The difference is not the loan. The difference is not even the amount of money borrowed. The real difference is how that debt is used. And once you understand that difference, you may never look at money, loans, or wealth the same way again. Most people are taught to see debt as the enemy, the thing to avoid, the thing to escape, the thing that ruins lives if you get too close to it. And for many people, that is exactly what debt becomes: a burden, a weight, a monthly payment that follows them everywhere. But debt itself is not the real enemy. Debt is really just rented money. Think about that for a second. When you rent an apartment, you do not own the apartment. You simply pay rent for the right to use it. When you borrow money, the same thing is happening. You do not own the bank's money. You are simply paying interest for the right to use it. The concept is almost identical. The real question is not whether renting is good or bad. The real question is what you do with the thing you rented. If you rent money only to buy things you could not afford, things that lose value, things that produce no income, then the debt slowly becomes a trap. The interest keeps growing. The payments keep returning, month after month, year after year. And eventually, you are no longer controlling the debt. The debt is controlling you. But if you borrow money to buy an asset, to start a business, to create cash flow, or to acquire something that produces more value than it costs, then the story changes completely. The loan did not change. The interest rate did not change. The bank did not change. The person using the money changed. And that is why debt is not automatically good or bad. Debt is simply a tool. And like every tool, it depends on the hands holding it. A hammer can build a house or break a window. A loan can build wealth or destroy it. The difference is not the tool. The difference is how it is used. There is one question that matters more than almost anything else when it comes to debt. Not how much you borrowed, not how scary the loan feels, not even how fast you can pay it back. The real question is much simpler. Does the money you borrowed earn more than it costs? Because that one question changes everything. Imagine borrowing money at 4%, then using that same money to earn 7%. On paper, the loan still has interest. You still owe the bank. You still have a payment. But financially, something different is happening. The money costs you 4%, and it earns 7%. The difference is 3%. That difference is called the spread. And in the world of money, the spread is often what separates smart debt from dangerous debt. If the spread is positive, the borrowed money is working for you. It is producing more than it consumes. It is creating more value than it costs. But if the spread is negative, the opposite happens. The loan does not just sit there, it slowly pulls money away from you, quietly, month after month, payment after payment. This is how investors think. They do not start by asking whether debt exists. They start by asking whether the debt produces a positive spread. Because to them, a loan is not automatically good or bad. It is a calculation. It is a tool. It is a question of cost versus return. But most people never run that calculation. They focus on the monthly payment. They focus on the total balance. They focus on the fear of owing money. And because of that, They often miss the real number that decides the outcome. Experienced investors look at debt differently. They ask one thing first: what does this money cost? And what can this money produce? Because before the investment begins, before the asset is purchased, before the business grows, that one number can already tell you whether debt is likely to work for you or against you. Now we arrive at the second piece of the puzzle: leverage. And this is where debt starts to become powerful, because spread tells you whether borrowed money is working for you, but leverage tells you how much money you are actually controlling. Most people only think about the money they own. If they have $100,000, they believe they can only buy $100,000 worth of assets. And in a world without leverage, that would be true. You put in $100,000. You buy something worth $100,000. You control $100,000. Simple. But leverage changes the size of the game. Because what if that same $100,000 allows you to control $500,000 worth of assets? Now your money is no longer working alone. It is controlling something much bigger than itself. That is leverage. And this is why real estate investors use mortgages. They are not only buying a house, they are using a smaller amount of their own money to control a much larger asset. This is why businesses use supplier credit. They can receive inventory, sell the product, and pay the supplier later. This is why large investors borrow against their portfolios. They are not borrowing because they are broke. They are borrowing because their assets give them the power to control more capital. From the outside, it may look like they are collecting debt, but that is not what they are doing. They are collecting control. Control over more assets. Control over more cash flow. Control over more opportunities. And when leverage is combined with a positive spread, wealth can grow much faster than it could with cash alone. But this is also why leverage must be respected. Because leverage is not magic. It is a magnifier. It magnifies the good and it magnifies the bad. It multiplies the gains and it multiplies the losses. Used wisely, leverage can accelerate wealth. Used carelessly, it can destroy everything much faster than people expect. And this is the part most people ignore. Because leverage sounds exciting. It sounds powerful. It sounds like a shortcut. A way to control more assets. A way to grow faster. A way to build wealth before you have all the money yourself. But leverage is not magic. It does not turn every decision into a good decision. It does not protect you from being wrong. It only amplifies whatever is already happening. If the investment performs well, leverage multiplies the reward. The gains become larger. The growth becomes faster. The outcome looks smarter than it really was. But if the investment performs badly, leverage multiplies the damage. The losses become heavier. The pressure becomes greater. And the mistake becomes much harder to escape. A small error can become a large financial wound. A bad investment can become a disaster. And this is why two people can both use debt, but end up in completely different places. One uses debt and becomes wealthier. The other uses debt and spends years trying to recover from it. The difference is not courage. It is not confidence. It is not who is willing to take the bigger risk. The real difference is discipline. The best investors do not start by asking how much they can make. They start by asking what happens if they are wrong. What if the market falls? What if the business slows down? What if the asset does not produce enough income? What if the payment becomes too heavy? Because in investing, survival matters more than looking aggressive. Staying in the game matters more than maximizing every return. And that is why leverage must always be respected. Used wisely, it can accelerate wealth. Used carelessly, it can destroy everything much faster than people expect. So here is the entire lesson in one sentence. Debt is not what makes people rich, and debt is not what makes people poor. Debt is only the instrument. The real question is much deeper. Does the money you borrowed create more value than it costs you to use? If it does, debt becomes a tool that can help you buy assets, build businesses, control opportunities, and grow faster than your own cash could grow alone. But if it does not, Debt becomes a trap built from interest, payments, pressure, and time. The loan may be the same. The interest rate may even be the same. The bank may be the same. But the outcome can be completely different. One person uses debt to build wealth. Another person uses the same kind of debt and becomes controlled by it. And that difference changes everything. Because in the end, debt does not decide your future. How you use it does.